Amco brake lathe video, how to machine a brake rotor using the Amco brake lathe. I'm going to go over some steps here on what you're going to need to do to properly machine a brake rotor using this Amco brake lathe. Let's start by taking a look at the lathe itself, which I think you're going to find is going to be very similar to the lathe that you've used to machine brake drums. Look at some of the features. Here we have the cutter head, which is a dual cutter head. We're going to be machining both sides of the brake rotor. Of course, we have our lock screws to move that cutter head in and out. I'm going to take some time here to show you the setup and fine adjustments that we really didn't have with the drum lathe. The on-off power switch is going to remain the same. We have our horizontal feed handle. We still have some of the same controls that we did on the other lathe, however, we're not going to use these. These aren't going to be necessary for machining brake rotor. We have our vertical feed handle. This is kind of nice because it does come with a light. Okay. And let's take a look at the rotor setup procedure when we're going to machine it. What do we have to do before we machine this brake rotor? I spray painted the brake rotor so we would simulate having rust on there and what you normally encounter. And in your lab task, it's asking you to take a measurement for rotor parallelism. So what you're going to want to do is use your micrometer and take a measurement in 8 different areas. And of course, we take that highest reading and lowest reading and subtract the two, and that's going to be your rotor parallelism specification. We always do want to take a micrometer reading before machining our brake rotor, same as brake drums. This way, we know how much metal that we've taken off. And of course, always look it up in the Bendix brake book, which is located inside of the toolbox by your brake lathes. This is going to give you all your specifications, or if you choose, you can check that information out online. Some of the components are still the same. We're going to need our hubless adapters. Make sure that they're the same size. Tension spring. I have my centering cone, which I've already chosen. And I have a few spacers laid out here for you to take a look at. Again, going to remain the same as it did with the drum lathe. And of course, we have our lock nut, keeping in mind that that thing is reverse thread. Chatter band might look a little bit different than it did when machining drums. And I have some sandpaper here for when we're done. That's the stuff that you're going to need to machine a brake rotor. We'll go ahead and I'll get it set up here for you, and I think you're going to notice that it's going to look fairly similar. So what we're going to need to do is loosen the thumb screw for our vertical feed handle, and I'm going to back the cutter head all the way out. Switch my light on. Loosen my thumb screws and take my cutter heads. I'm going to try and get you a little bit closer shot there of what that looks like when I move those cutting heads. When I loosen that thumb screw, you'll notice that they move in and out. Same thing with the other side. I want to back them all the way as far in as I can. And I always keep a paintbrush handy. This way I can make sure that the cutter heads stay clean. Over time, the bits themselves, which are interchangeable, you may need to change them as the quality of cut begins to get a little bit less over time. Okay. Go ahead and cone this rotor up. First, going to start with my hubless adapter. I always put one of the teeth at 12 o'clock. Put my tension spring on. Centering cone. Get our brake rotor on. Second hubless adapter. Now you'll notice I keep that outside centerless adapter or hubless adapter with that tooth at the 12 o'clock position. And I try and put it between the stud holes. We had our assortment of spacers. laid out, so we'll use as many spacers as we need. And that's what it looks like when it's all coned up. Then lastly, we'll take our wrench and snug it in place. I'm not overdoing it. Before I put that chatter band on, what I'm going to do is turn the machine on, and I'm going to check for any kind of lateral runout. Remember, lateral runout is side to side. Radial runout would be up and down. A little bit of radial runout when machining brake rotors is not such a bad thing. But lateral runout, if we have excess lateral runout, we're going to need to take that brake rotor off, probably re-sand it, which I already did, just to eliminate a little bit of time from the video, and try and re-cone this rotor back up. So we'll turn it on, take a look at it, and make sure it's not giving us that side-to-side wobble. I think that looks pretty good. Our next step is going to be to adjust our cutter head. We want to center both bits on the rotor. So I loosen the lock nut on the cutter head. I'm going to slide it over, eyeball it, and make sure that looks like it's in the center of our rotor. Let you guys take a little closer look at that. And we can notice that the distance between our bit and the rotor is pretty much the same on both sides, and that's what you want. I'll go ahead and I'll lock my lock nut down on my cutter head. And my next step is going to be to install my chatter band. Now this is a vented rotor, which you saw the slots in the middle. So our chatter band is going to work well on this type of rotor. If we had a composite rotor or non-vented rotor, the setup's going to be similar, but we may want to use a few different style adapters, as well as using a different type of silencer, which would be that tool right there. Just simply clamps onto the brake rotor because there's no room, there's no venting in that rotor to support the use of a chatter band. Let's go ahead and take our scratch cut. Get you in there as close as I can. And I'm going to start with the inboard side of the rotor first. Just turning that knob until that bit just makes contact, and you're going to hear it. There we go. And we're going to do the same for the outboard side. I'll turn it until it just makes contact. There we go. Tighten my lock screw. And I'm going to go ahead and run this, run the cutter head in. Okay. Now that the cutter head is all the way in, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to adjust my on-lathe gauges, which I'll zero them out. I'll zero out both sides. You notice that the inside moves freely. It's not locked to the cutter head. Once I zero both my gauges out, I'll loosen my thumb screw, and I'm going to turn them together simultaneously. Each line is 2/1000 of an inch, We never want to take any more than 4 thousandths per pass. So there's 2 lines on that side. And I'll take 2 lines on this side, which is a total of 8 thousandths of an inch. Now our next step here is to go ahead and engage the lathe cutter head. And unlike the drum lathe, we have a fast and slow control. So we'll take a fast cut, lift up and pull toward you. And that's going to engage that, and that's going to start taking a cut off of that rotor. And what you're going to see is as my bit begins to cut across the rotor, you're going to see how it's getting all nice and shiny. I'm taking that paint I put on there away, and the object is to get all that paint off. And in your case, you're machining a brake rotor from a vehicle. You want to get all the rust off. So it should look the same on both sides. They bring you around to this side. So there's our inboard side, is doing the same thing. And then of course our outboard side. And usually cutting brake rotors doesn't take as long as it does to cut brake drums. So we'll let that go ahead and make a pass all the way across that rotor. Turn it off, take a look and see how we've done on our first pass. We're going to need to make sure that all that paint is gone from all the way across the rotor, all the way around. Okay, that side looks pretty good. I'm going to go over to this side, take a peek. And that side looks pretty well also. If you can't see the bottom, don't be afraid to put your hand on there and manually spin it. And that looks pretty good. So now that we've completed our fast pass, okay, we've taken one quick cut across that rotor. Now we're going to back that up by taking a slow cut. We're just dusting the machine off here a little bit. And I'll turn the machine back on. Don't need to adjust anything. Just going to walk the cutter head back in. Don't want to go too fast. Faster you go, you just generate more heat between the bit and the rotor. And you're just going to burn the bit up quicker. So I'm just taking both bits all the way beyond the point where the brake pads would normally contact the rotor. And here now, instead of taking 4 thousandths of an inch, get you in a little closer here, I'm only going to need to take 2 thousandths of an inch. And so I'll move that, loosen my lock nut, move one line. Same thing on the opposite side. Myself one line. And now instead of going forward with the transmission on the brake lathe, I'm going to lift this up and move it to the back of the lathe. And if you forget, it is labeled. To the front is fast, to the rear is slow. We'll go ahead and take our slow cut. And you kind of know a good indicator that your rotor lathe is working, it's cutting. If you observe the handle, it is spinning. This cut's going to take a little bit longer than our fast cut because we're moving at a much slower rate. And again, what I'm looking for is that I'm making contact on both sides, the inboard side as well as the outboard side. And here we're just machining a little bit of metal off to eliminate that record grooving, as I call it. So we're going to go ahead and let that run, and we'll check on it from time to time. Make sure that we're getting the cut that we want. Okay, we can hear that our rotor should be done. The bits have stopped cutting. So I'll go ahead, I'll disengage the rotor transmission. turn the power off to the machine, and let's take a look. We'll see how we did. Yeah, the outboard side looks nice and clean. You notice that there's no chatter marks in here. It looks good. We'll go ahead and take a look at the inboard side. Same thing, nice and clean. Okay. There's one last step that we got to perform before we're done with this, and what I usually do is I'll, just for demonstration, I'll take a pen here and kind of hear that scratching noise, and we need to eliminate that before we take it off of the rotor machine. And it's a real simple process. All I'm going to do is take our chatter band off. Set that to the side. I'm going to grab a piece of sandpaper. Turn the machine back on, and I'm going to get rid of that what's called directional finish, and I'm going to put a non-directional finish on this brake rotor, just with our piece of sandpaper. Being careful here. I'm just going to rub it against the side. Kind of going up and down. But what happens is after we machine a brake rotor, it sort of looks like one of those old vinyl records where it has the grooves in it. We need to take that groove away. Turn our machine off. Get our cutter head out of the way. Let's take this off the machine. See how we did. And ta-da! How does that look? Nothing like a freshly machined brake rotor. There's our inboard side, nice and clean. And then of course, the outboard side. Look at that. That is gorgeous. That rotor is ready to go back on somebody's vehicle and give them many, many more miles of quiet, happy brake service. I hope you enjoyed the video. Good luck machining brake rotors.